Yo, what's going on guys? Camilo here. In this video, I'm gonna be doing a tier list for Heizou's best weapons. We're just gonna be ranking his potential weapons and we're gonna see which weapons are better for him and which weapons are not. So yeah, without further ado, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's begin. Alright, so first of all, as you guys can see here, we have the usual tiers, S, A, B, C, and D. So obviously D is the worst weapons. These are the weapons that are like completely not gonna work on him at all. C is the weapons that are gonna work a little bit, but they're definitely not the best. B is your average weapons. A are your like close to best weapons, and S are obviously his best in slots. So keep in mind guys, Heizou can be built generally in two ways, either a full elemental mastery build or like a normal crit rate, crit damage build. Right here we have all of the catalysts in the game right now, so yeah, let's start ranking the weapons. So starting off with the Fivonius Codex right here, this weapon gives you only like energy recharge with the passive and also the substat. It also has like an average base attack, so there's nothing really special about this weapon. I'd say definitely skip on Heizou. You should probably not use this weapon on him at all. So yeah, it's D tier. The second weapon we have is the Witsit. It has, just an average base attack, but it has a crit damage substat, which is pretty good if you're building Heizou with like crit. And also with the passive, two of the possible buffs are gonna be pretty good on Heizou. And if you're building him for elemental mastery, then only one buff is gonna be usable. But yeah, generally this weapon is pretty good on Heizou. The only problem is that it's pretty inconsistent really. It really depends on what buff you get. Also, you're not gonna be getting a buff like every single time, but the crit substat is still pretty good and it's gonna be usable on Heizou. So I would say it's B tier. Just an average weapon. You can use it if you don't have any other like better weapons that we're gonna see in a little bit. Next weapon we have is the Eye of Perception. This weapon's not really that special at all. Pretty low base attack substat, which is not really that big of a deal on Heizou, and also the passive is almost like useless. So yeah, to say the least, I would say it's just like C tier in here. It's definitely usable. It's not as bad as like the Fivonius Codex, but it's still definitely not like a very good weapon on Heizou. Next thing we have is the Wine and Song. It gives you energy recharge as a substat, which is not really a big deal on Heizou. It doesn't really need much energy recharge, but it also has a pretty high base attack for a 4-star, and also the passive is gonna give you attack. So no crit, but it's still a decent weapon. I would put it at B tier, definitely less than the Witsit, but it's still B tier. Next we have the Frost Bearer, I think it's called. But yeah, it's gonna give you attack. I think the passive is just like bullshit with the ice cryo thing that falls and stuff like that. But yeah, it still has a decent like base attack and also an attack substat. Again, no crit, anything like that, but it's still pretty viable on Heizou, I would say. So yeah, I'd put it B tier. Yeah, probably less than Wine and Song, but it's still pretty good. Next thing we have is the Mappa Mare. Pretty high base attack, but other than that, it has a big problem. The thing is with Mappa Mare is that the passive is gonna give you elemental damage bonus. That means it's gonna boost your Anemo damage. But the substat is gonna give you elemental mastery. So if you're building Heizou for like elemental mastery and swirls and stuff like that, you're not gonna benefit from the passive at all because you're not building him for elemental damage. And if you're building him with like crit and stuff like that, then you're not gonna benefit from elemental mastery. You will benefit a little bit, but not really as much because you're gonna be focusing on getting damage from like his skill and stuff like that, the green numbers. So yeah, it's kind of split. You can't really take full advantage out of this weapon. I would put it C tier, definitely the best one at C tier, but it's not really that good. Next we have the Prototype Amber. It's definitely D tier. Just like the usual HP and an HP substat, there's nothing really useful for Heizou with this weapon. Next we have the Dodoco Tails. Pretty low base attack, a big attack substat. The passive is pretty much useless. So yeah, I'd put it at C tier, probably in between. We have the Twin Nephrite. Decent base attack for a 4-star weapon, but it's still pretty low. Very low, but it's still a crit substat, which is pretty good. And it's also going to increase your attack a little bit. I would say it's a decent weapon to use on him. I'd put it C tier, probably in here, but you should probably not use it. All of these weapons are going to be better than the Twin Nephrite. It's still pretty usable though. We have the Magic Guide, a very low base attack and an elemental mastery substat. If you're building Heizou with elemental mastery, then it's going to be in C tier. If you're not, then it's D tier. So yeah, we're going to put it at C tier in here. You know, it's just a decent elemental mastery substat. That's about it really for this weapon. This is, I forgot what this is called. Wait, hold on. Oh yeah, this is the Outsworn Eye. But yeah, it gives you a high base attack and an attack substat, and then some energy recharge from the passive. Definitely not very good, but for the high base attack and attack substat, I put it at B tier, probably around here. We have the Thrill and Tails. It's gonna give you a low base attack and an HP substat, which is useless. It's gonna give you some attack from the passive, but it's definitely not enough to justify it. So yeah, for a 3-star weapon, I'll definitely put it at D tier. If you want to use like a 3-star, definitely go for the Twin Nephrite. We have the... Wait, I forgot what this is called. I swear I've never seen this weapon before. Bro, I literally never seen this weapon before. Wait, hold up. Well, apparently it's called the Otherworldly Story. It gives you energy recharge and HP, which we don't need. So yeah, but I definitely did not see this weapon before in my life. Well, maybe I've seen it, but I'm saying like I've never acknowledged it. We have the Emerald Orb. It's gonna increase your attack, and it's also gonna give you Elemental Mastery. Also, the base attack is pretty decent for a 4-star weapon. So yeah, I'll put it C tier in here. It's pretty good, especially for a Elemental Mastery build. Alright, now coming into the big boys. So we have the Memory of Dust, a very high base attack, and it's also going to give you an attack substat, and it's also going to increase your attack from the passives if you can trigger it. You're going to have to auto attack a little bit to get the stacks. But yeah, it's still a very good weapon. I'll put it A tier. It's definitely not S tier, but it's still very, very good. Everlasting Moonglow. Yep, we're not really gonna talk much about that. I put it in here, but it's defo D tier. Skyward Atlas, it has an incredibly high base attack. It's also gonna give you an attack substat, which is pretty good, and it's gonna give you elemental damage bonus from the passive. I put it A tier too. It's not really an S tier material, but it's definitely one of the best weapons for him. We have the Lost Prayer. It's gonna give you crit rate and a pretty decent base attack. For the passive, you're gonna have elemental damage bonus, but the thing is, you're probably not gonna be staying on the field for long with Heizou. So you're probably going to be working with like 1 stack, but it's still a very, very good weapon on him. Just you'd want to make sure you stay on the field for like 4 seconds or 8 seconds maybe to get 1 or 2 stacks. That's going to boost your damage by a lot. But yeah, it's definitely still a very, very good weapon on him. So I'd put it S tier. We have the Royal Catalyst. It's going to give you a pretty decent base attack for a 4-star weapon. It's also going to give you an attack substat. The passive is just like that crit bullshit. It's pretty much useless. So yeah, I'd put it at the lower side of B tier. Next thing we have the Solar Pearl. It's going to give you a pretty decent base attack for a 4-star weapon. It's going to increase your crit rate with a crit rate substat, which is pretty good. And then it's also going to increase your elemental burst and elemental skill damage, which is very, very important on Heizou. Most of his damage is going to come from his elemental skill and burst. So yeah, I would say it's definitely an S tier weapon, especially for a 4-star weapon. It has a great value and it's definitely pretty good. We have the Blackcliff, also a decent base attack, a crit damage substat, which is pretty good. The only problem with the passive is that you're going to have to kill an enemy, which is not really always like available, but generally it's still a pretty good weapon. So yeah, I'd put it at the lower side of A tier. We have the Hakushin Ring. It has a high base attack for a 4-star weapon, but that's pretty much it. It's gonna give you energy recharge, which is not really usable on Heizou, and the passive is just tailored for like electro charged reactions. So yeah, it's not really that good of a weapon, I would say. I'd put it at D tier. Finally, we have the Kagura's Verity. Obviously, it has a high base attack. It's a 5-star weapon. It has a very big crit damage substat, and you're going to be able to use the passive a little bit for 1 stack, I would say, and that's going to increase your elemental skill damage. His elemental skills cooldown is 10 seconds, and the passive is going to last for 16 seconds, so you're always going to be able to have 1 stack. So yeah, I would say this weapon is definitely one of the best on Heizou, probably the best weapon actually. So yeah, definitely S tier. So yeah, this is the general tier list for weapons for Heizou, I would say. If you disagree with anything on this, then say it in the comments. Please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video, and see y'all in the next video. Peace.